So I met a young lady the other day who had named her daughter Tamar. And I asked her why did she name her daughter Tamar. She said, well, it's a biblical name. It's a woman of the Bible through the lineage of David and all these other things that she was saying. And I asked her, have you ever actually read that story and understand exactly what you're talking about here? Because that story is incredibly immoral and is really jacked up on so many levels. And she said no, she hadn't really thought about it. She hadn't really read the story. She just know that there were other women in her church who was named Tamar, and that they were good women of Christ and all this kind of thing, and that she knows that Tamar is a woman of the Bible. And I said, well, let me break it down to you if you don't mind. But if you don't want to, then that's fine. Walk on in your life and live how you want to live. But I can tell you how the story goes. So she sat, and she wanted to hear how the story goes. So I'm going to give you guys the abridged version concerning Tamar. So basically, Tamar was betrothed to one of Judah's sons. Can't remember the first son's name, but was betrothed to the son. But that son was found to be so wicked by God. Doesn't tell you why he was wicked, but then he was killed, murdered. God killed him for no reason. Don't even know why. Didn't even give it a justification. Nothing stands up in court. But then, as customary to their tradition, the youngest son hadn't been married yet, and since he hadn't been married and there was no children by Tamar and her first husband, Onan then had to marry his wife's widow, his brother's widow. So he marries her. And it's told that when you have a child, that child would be the child of your brother, your deceased brother. Well, Onan was like, I'm not having that. And plus, biology doesn't necessarily work that way, but that's how they was explaining it back then and thought that biology works. But I'm sure they knew biology didn't work like that. But it was a traditional thing. But Onan decided that every time I have sex with her, I'll be damned. I'll be damned. He skeet on the floor, skeet on the floor. Wasn't going to do it. And after a while, this guy, he looks down and he say, hey, man, that ain't right. If you're going to skeet, it just got to be in the woman. You can't skeet on the floor. So all you guys who've been masturbating, and you Christian, your skeeting, you might get killed by God. Because guess what this guy did to Onan? Did he come down and say, Onan, look, let me explain something to you. I've set forth this rule, all right? You're supposed to produce a child for your brother, so I need you to skeet in her and stop doing all that. I'm going to take care of you, but you're wrong. Nope, didn't do it, waste any time talking to him, this so-called God of second chances. He just straight up killed Onan. Now, Judah, being a good father, is supposed to pass on to his son who's younger, too young to get married, on to Tamar again because no children have been born. He wasn't betrothed to anybody. But instead of that, Judah said, look, Tamar, right, he too young. Go back home to your daddy. Stay with your daddy. Once my son is old enough, I'll give you my last son. And after a while, Tamar's chilling. Realize that the son is now old enough, but it's not getting it. She hasn't gotten married yet. And being a woman and being a widower and not having a son, and if your father ever dies, you're going to be destitute because women had no rights to property back then. So Tamar finds out that Judah is going to be traveling near the village where she lives. So she thinks first, oh, he's coming to bring his son, but then finds out he's not bringing the son. So then she concocts a plan. She says, I'm going to go over here and sit near this other temple, and I'm going to be on the side of the road, and I'm going to dress like a harlot and put a mask over my face. When Judah come by, I'm going to, shake the pom-poms at him and try to get him to, want some of my pom-pom, right? And knowing that Judah, because his wife not died, and she's been dead for a while at this point, he's probably he's been eating that horny goat weed. So he was ready for some pom-pom. When he saw her, he said, hey, woman, come sleep with me. It literally says it like that. Hey, woman, come sleep with me. Didn't ask her, like, would you like, go out for dinner, a little romance, little flowers, you know what I'm saying, something like that, get to know each other, and then maybe, I know I'm older, but we can become husband and wife. No, he see her as a prostitute and say, hey, come give me some. Judah, he's supposed to be a righteous man, right? So he goes, he gets some. And after he gets his little pom-pom, she like, I need to, pay me. He's like, I'll pay you a goat, but I ain't got the goat with me. And so she's like, well, give me some of your trinkets. He took a seal and he took a staff and said, these are the trinkets. I'll give them back to you once you bring me my goat. So he goes on about his business. Now, after he goes to the town, he's doing his trade, and then he says, hey, he told one of his people, go take this goat, give it to the woman. He's a little prostitute on the side of the road. Go give it to her. So he goes. She ain't there. Looking for her. Everybody's like, ain't no prostitutes here. We don't have no prostitute here, man. We ain't immoral and raggedy like you jokers. We ain't got no prostitutes. So what happens then? Judah goes on about his business. Then about 3 months later, word comes out. Tamar's pregnant. She's pregnant by another man. Now Judah feeling some kind of way. Oh, and she got pregnant because she was a prostitute. What? My daughter-in-law a prostitute? That's embarrassing to me as a man. Bring her out into the streets. We're going to kill her ass. We ain't going there. That's immoral. That's unrighteous. So then, what happens next? Tamar, she being slick like she is, decides that she's going to send old dude, gonna send him say, hey, the man who got me pregnant, this his seal, this his rod, look familiar to you? Judah sit up there and be like, oh, damn, she more righteous than me. She more righteous than me because, you know, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, so I made her be a prostitute. That's some straight bullshit. All right? How is it that it was okay for Judah to go and participate in prostitution, but as soon as a woman participates in prostitution, there's a problem with it? It's basically saying that women, y'all ain't nothing more than property. Y'all are to be used at the suggestion and subjugation of a man at all times. That if a man go prostitute with you, he fine. But as soon as you doing it and you got some kind of clout or relation to that man, then you need to be stoned to death. So again, stop naming y'all daughters Tamar.